Here.
Oh, you're gonna be what?
Only just because I want to report you because I think you're a genius.
Well, then it's not even like I'm talking. Actually, it's like amazing. It erases the whole attempt to be an audience.
Hey guys, welcome.
I'm an audience.
There you go.
Hi everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
We're here a little bit early. We're hanging out with Pauline, the beautiful woman who's going to take us out to go see the cauliflower coral.
Yep.
And here's Victoria and Gabby. We're
Hi,
all
everybody.
so excited.
Yep.
And
Britt, thanks for being here with us this morning. We really appreciate you guys coming to witness this event. I learned about coral spawning from Pauline Fiene, who has been kind of tracking these corals and when their little time slot for spawning is. For how many years now, Pauline, have you been paying attention?
30 years.
30 years, yeah. And so I wanted to make sure that that everyone gets a chance to share in this knowledge because I have learned so much from this lady. So Pauline is a real expert in her field. You have a degree in what?
Just biology. Just
Biology. Yeah. And then you came to Hawaii and you were like, I'm gonna learn as much as I can about all this stuff. Is that
Just-
true?
How can you not?
Yeah.
How can you not want to learn? Yeah.
Cool. So what can you tell us about today?
Okay, so this is, like today is one of the few days out of the entire year that we have a chance to see coral spawning during daylight hours. You know, the vast majority of corals spawn at night, but there are a few species that spawn during the day, and today is one of those auspicious days. So, and the species of coral that we are hoping to see spawn is this species called cauliflower coral, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I know that you guys already know that coral is alive and it reproduces like all animals do. And one of the ways that coral reproduces is called spawning. And because corals are attached to the bottom, they can't go wandering around looking for mates, right? So they have to have a different way of getting their eggs and sperm to find each other. And the way they do that is to release their eggs and sperm into the water. And you can imagine that releasing these microscopic eggs and sperm into the water, into the ocean, would just immediately, they would be so dilute, right? So if one coral colony did it one day and another coral colony did it another day, those eggs and sperm would never find each other. So they have to release those eggs and sperm within a tiny sliver of time, within like a 15-minute window of time, all at the same time. And so if we wanted to do something like that, we would have a calendar, a watch, right, to get us to this particular day and this particular time. But obviously corals don't have that. They don't even have brains. So they use nature's calendar, which is the seasons changing, the moon phase, and then the time of sunrise or moonrise if it's a night spawning species. And so in this case, the water temperature changes throughout the year, right? And as it starts to come up from winter, the corals begin developing their eggs. And the egg development can take as long as 9 months in some species. You wouldn't think of coral eggs taking that long, but some species, that's how long they take. And so the eggs are developing based on the seasonal changes. And so they are ready for April and May when cauliflower coral is spawned. And then, so those are the months, the eggs are ready for those months. And then to know what days in those months it's going to happen, they use the phase of the moon, right? So in this case, it's a few days after the full moon. And then to know what time on those days, in those months that they will spawn, they use the time of sunrise. So it's a certain number of minutes after sunrise. And so using all those things, the corals are able to release their eggs and sperm at the same time. In the case of cauliflower coral, this species releases both eggs and sperm from the same colony. In other species of corals, one colony might be male, one colony might be female, but in the case of cauliflower coral, it's releasing both. So when we're down there, and if we are, if today is one of the days, well, it is one of the days, but I mean, if they will do it on these days. So they typically release on the first, second, and or third days after the full moon. But we never know if it's going to be one day out of those 3 days, 2 days out of those 3 days, or all 3 days out of those 3 days, or none. Occasionally, it has not happened at all. And we never know how they decide which days they're going to and which days they're not. But if it happens today, what it would look like is all of a sudden you'd see a cauliflower coral and you'd see what you think, is there like smoke coming out of it. And if you see that, if we see that, we'll go over to that colony and then it'll be obvious whether it's happening or not. I mean, sometimes it comes out kind of like in waves. Sometimes it's just pouring out of the colony. And every single time I see it, it plays a little trick on my brain because we're looking at coral. It looks like a rock, right? And yet there's stuff coming out of this, what looks like a rock. And so it'd be like if there were a rock on land and smoke was coming out of it. It's the same thing that your brain is like, where is that coming from? But all those eggs and sperm are coming from the thin layer of tissue that is the coral animal, and it's coming out of the little coral polyps. And so if we look at that very closely, and especially if we shine a light straight over the colony, we'll see two things. We'll see the little dots that are the eggs, and then they'll be against a milky backdrop, which is the sperm. And the sperm are way too tiny for us to see. So if we look closely, we would see both things. It's really frustrating because on days when we're looking for it to happen, they just give no indication whether it's going to happen or not. Like, they're not changing color, they don't kind of swell up or anything. And in this picture, the cauliflower coral is green. This individual colony is green, but other cauliflower corals are pink or tan or whatever. I'd say green is kind of actually unusual. So we're actually not looking for this exact color or anything. It's the shape. The corals that look like a little head of cauliflower, that's what we're looking for. And they're not going to give us any indication whether the spawning is going to occur or not. We may spend the whole dive looking and hoping, and it may not happen, which is part of the fun, I think, because, how fun would it be if it was super guaranteed? And, yeah, I like that nature just makes us
Work for it.
makes us work for it, makes us, respect,
What's the scientific name of this species?
Poslepora meandrina.
As far as like the cauliflower coral spawning, like I tried Googling this information and nothing comes up as far as like dates and stuff like that. So were you kind of figuring out the times and dates when everything started happening in Maui? Because it's the best part about this whole, we can learn about coral online. I feel like I learned more from you in like 8 minutes of like just now, and then just reading some of the stuff that was sent to me via you guys in text than I could ever Google. And then, like I said, you can't just look up on a web browser like what exact time is coral spawning.
Yeah.
So it's just such a rare event, and it's crazy that like the minute to minute. And would you be able to maybe tell our followers like your experience in figuring out and learning as much as you have and timing and stuff like that?
Well, it was complete luck the first time I saw it, right? I just happened to be in the water. And imagine seeing something like that and then not being able to look it up online. You're just like, oh, what is this?
It's dying.
Why are they smoking? And so then I thought that was just complete chance, right? Complete luck. I'll never see this again. My gosh. And then a couple years later, I saw it again, but it was in May. First time I saw it was in April. The second time I saw it was in May. So that's no pattern, right? So I'm just thinking, wow, this could happen anytime. And then the third time I saw it was either in April or May, and then I'm like, okay, this is something. And then I looked at, like full moon calendars, and I realized, so it's after the full moon this is happening, and the time, and yeah, and then just kept collecting data over the years, and fine-tuning and fine-tuning and fine-tuning it. So now that there's this range, and this was all at MAUIPOSE, so, but anytime that we've gotten in along the coastline during the MAUIPOSE hours, it has happened along the coastline as well. And the Big Island, same thing. Oahu, I've had friends looking on different islands, and it has happened during that same window of time on island. So it's not unique to MAUIPOSE.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we'll be offshore today.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be like out in deeper water.
Mm-hmm. And it
you've
doesn't
done
seem
this-
to matter.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to see if anybody has any questions? I feel like they have an okay understanding of coral, but if there anybody who's watching, we are going to get you guys out in the water. We're going to end this live, kind of swim out, get ready to go hopefully view this event. But if you guys had any questions for Pauline, who's our expert today, feel free to let Lance know. So is this something that would happen in April and May, or is it April or May?
No, it's April and May. But imagine if the full moon falls like the last day of March, and then that would be like April, 1, 2, 3 or whatever.
Okay.
It sometimes it has happened where it was so early in the month that it didn't happen in both April and May. So not every year have I seen it happen in both months. Usually it does, but if it falls super early in April, the water might just be a little too cool still, just not quite ready. They're not quite ready. So, but typically both April and May. And that's the case with other corals. They don't just have 1 month that they spawn. They'll have 2 or 3. Because this can also happen a tiny bit in June if it falls early in the month. So, the corals hedge their bets, right? If they spawned only 1 time a year, like 1 month, 1 little 3-day period, what if what if there was a hurricane? What if there was some big runoff disaster or whatever? Most corals have a 2 or 3 month window when they'll spawn multiple months.
Allison wants to know if you've ever got to witness any other coral spawning too.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Mainly rice coral, which happens at night in July and August here on
Nice.
Yeah, and that one happens also in an aquarium setting here on Maui. So if you ever go to the Maui Ocean Center, sometimes they used to have events, and I remember going to an event where you could witness that happening.
Yeah.
And Pauline, I wanted to ask, I remember when I was learning about coral spawning, isn't there a buoyancy factor, right? Like they don't just come out, the eggs and sperm don't just come out and then fall to the bottom, do they?
Well, actually, this species, they are negative.
Are they?
But rice coral, they slowly float to the surface. Yeah.
And then when cauliflower coral is releasing eggs, are they releasing them as egg bundles? Do you know that much about it, or is it one egg?
Yeah, I think they're individual eggs. And I've also seen antler coral spawn, the bigger branching coral, and a few other ones too.
And that would be different for species of coral. Like it could be almost any month out of the year. Because if you were saying July and June, it's a different
For rice corals, yeah.
July, August for rice corals.
So interesting.
Well, I guess one of the things I wish I could have said the other day when you guys were out diving with us is that for anybody who's interested in this stuff, there is so much that is still unknown. I mean, you've got somebody in the scuba industry who's underwater regularly and starts documenting and noticing these things. I mean, Pauline has 10,500 dives that she's done in her life, and she keeps a log of every single one of those and any unusual thing that she sees. So that's how she's able to make these connections. So I forget what the statistic is, but it's an insane amount that we know, I mean, that everyone's heard, we know more about the moon than we do about our oceans, right? So there's just so much left to figure out. As like, when is antler coral going to be doing their spawning gig, and when are rice corals doing it, and then what about lobe corals? What are they up to? So,
oh my gosh, lobe coral is in the middle of the night. It's 1 a.m. I have seen lobe coral spawn.
What were you doing out there at 1
specifically
a.m.?
to see it? Our two most common species, well, two of the most common species, lobe coral and finger coral. They both spawn in the middle of the night, and it's so fine that you can barely see it coming out. It's even finer than this. Wow. It was, so hard to see. Mm-hmm. Antler coral is, so the cauliflower coral is April, May mostly. Antler coral is May, June. And so, each coral has its own time slot of when it spawns and why they evolve that way.
Well, I think previously you talked to us about like, well, what sense would it make for them to all be going off at the same time, right? They want to have a lot of different combinations. Exactly. Yeah.
And less chance of running into your species of tiger sperm. So, yeah.
Somebody wants to know if you think this is going on all around the world by chance.
Oh, well, for cauliflower coral, that's a great question. It is similar, like in Guam or other places where there has been, attention paid to cauliflower coral. It's definitely the same months, but the timing might be a little different but it's not like, cauliflower coral spawns in December in other parts of the world. Yeah, it's pretty similar to.
That's awesome.
And no, it's like thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah. And most corals are spawning in the spring and summer when the water's warmer, when it's more hospitable to the eggs.
Is that strategic, not just because it's more hospitable to the eggs, but then it's more hospitable to
when they settle?
Right, exactly. What are the baby corals called when they're still swimming? Planula, I think. Yeah. And then they like sniff around and they're like, oh, there's a chemical scent trail of a reef nearby. And then
I can't resist.
Yeah. And then they swim to the reef, and settle down. Mm-hmm. So the warmer temperature might be more nutrient in the water during that period of time. Like what's nobody knows. The corals aren't talking. So
that's good.
Yeah.
If you guys have any last minute questions, let us know. I do know we're probably gonna have to
we gotta get going. Yeah.
We've got a time window and we're gonna go get to the dive site.
You wanna let them know what time we should be jumping in?
Yeah, so we're gonna be in the water in between like 6:30 and 6:50 in the morning, Hawaii Standard Time. I made an event on the page. You'll get notified too as long as you're registered for it. We are gonna not disclose the dive site. We're going to just to protect the area. So we're going to start this live once we're like in the water, you guys. And then like Pauline was saying, we can't guarantee that this is going to happen. And that's what makes it, all the more exciting. I think it's really cool that we just get to spend the whole day learning about coral. If we do see the event, this will be the first ever live streamed coral spawning event, not even just cauliflower coral. So I think that's really cool that you guys can kind of experience that with us, and then we'll talk about coming back out tomorrow if we miss it, but I have really high hopes for today. So, I mean, I'm fine coming out tomorrow too, but
early mornings are our jam. So, yeah.
So, we are going to go do this.
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Okay,
Everyone
so
says thanks for the education, Pauline.
Thanks, Pauline.
All right, we'll see you guys in about 45 minutes to an hour, right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, check back in. We're going to go try to witness this out in the water, guys. We appreciate y'all. Everyone say bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice job, Pauline.